My name is Kemp, and I'm a poet, a performer, a plant lover. My Irish grandmother taught me to see fairies in the garden of Wellington Street where I grew up. And I think that opened up my imagination to all that was possible. So the idea of trying to transcribe that vision, I would have been a painter if I had been more talented, but I was better at words. So the process is to translate the vision into poetry.
Tune.
Ka, ka,
Calf.
ka,
Calf on.
ka.
Calf on. I think it was just that experience I told you of my grandmother expanding my imagination and making everything possible. I wasn't restricted to a linear kind of existence. I wasn't taught that I had to think in a certain way. Perhaps it's just being very left-handed.
Reason,
Sun,
reason,
sun, eight,
reason,
sun, eight, thing,
resonating.
In order to be a poet, I thought you had to read all of English literature, so I went through a wonderful program of honors English language and literature and French language and literature at Western, got my honors degree, and then 20 years later got a master's in history and philosophy at OISE, as well as an Althouse degree in education. Last year I was writer in residence at Western, and that was an amazing opportunity to connect town and gown, to connect Western with the community. Beneath us, the world spins dizzy from constant returns. Poetry for me is a way of expressing the sacred. I'm very connected with nature, the elements, the seasons, and I would like my poetry to be a reflection of that passage of the seasons, like the sound of the cardinal, very appropriate. So as a sound poet, I'm always listening. My attention is to the oral, because in our culture the visual is so predominant that I'd like to reflect back the oral tradition that in part we've lost.
Galaxies collide over and under and never come out on the other.
The garden is my solace. It's a joy to have this expansive space that I would never have had in Toronto, and to listen to be completely within, immersed in nature. It's a sacred space. I planted this garden in grade 9 as a project in science, and it's much different than it was in my manicured mother's day, but it's wild and tame at the same time. So the birds collect, the animals collect, and it's a feeling of being one with nature. I try to reflect nature and the sounds, the experience of being immersed in nature in my poetry.
Two things we know: the desolation of
impermanence and its consolation, interdependence. Soul is the constant sound between desolation and consolation, an equanimity that solves nothing but holds on to its own constellation.
Oh.